spent hours fixing our Minecraft server only for my church to get blown up 7 times by the same group I wanted to play with. Why me? I cannot believe I am writing this. I am using a throwaway account because I feel incredibly foolish and believe I may have completely overreacted. Essentially, this is about Minecraft, and I feel quite silly, as if I am 10 years old again. But please hear me out. My sister, some friends, and our group consists of about 8 people, a mix of random acquaintances from the internet, and some of my sisters and my friends have a Minecraft server. For some unknown reason, I ended up being the one to create the server, despite starting university again this year, which has made me quite stressed. I don't really have the time to manage server maintenance, update mods, research new mods and dependencies, or troubleshoot bugs and crashes. You get the idea. However, I went ahead and did it because I wanted us to have fun as a group, and no one else was stepping up to run it. My frustration began some time ago, stemming from the fact that different players have varying computer capabilities. Whenever someone wants a mod that another person's computer cannot handle, they often say something along the lines of, "Goddammit, Alex, a pseudonym, that's me." Or they somehow shift the blame onto me for absolutely everything. Game crashes, blame me. Mod incompatibility, blame me. I have to restart the server to implement mods they requested. Still my fault. I want this mod, why didn't you add it? My fault again. Alex, you included too many mods. My fault. Alex, why on earth did you add that particular one? Someone asked for it, and I announced it in the group, but somehow it's still my fault. The server originally started as a platform for a different mod, but we abandoned it to create a new one with various mods in an older version. I managed both servers. It was always the same. Anything that went wrong was my fault. This morning, I woke up at 9 a.m. intending to study when they asked me to activate the server, which I did. Then they requested that I add mods and fix a particular issue. The team command interfered with some mods, so I spent nearly 40 minutes trying to resolve it without having to restart the server, knowing they would complain if I did. Ultimately, I had to restart it, and yes, they did complain. I dedicated at least 4 or 5 hours to fixing the server and adding all the mods they wanted. I faced numerous issues, such as server crashes and incompatible mods. While I was stressed beyond measure, examining all the code, they continued to blame me. Why did you add that if it was going to disrupt the server? I didn't know, Jerry. I typically test all mods in a single-player world to ensure they work correctly, and they did. I can't explain why things went wrong with the server. Regardless, I was fatigued, hungry, and functioning on only 4 hours of sleep. Insomnia can be brutal, so I was extremely worn out. I hadn't even eaten breakfast, yet I resolved everything. After I finally finished, they all just logged off and stopped playing. I understand they may have been busy, but I can't help but feel it's my fault because I took too long, preventing them from enjoying the game. I had to restart the server several times and keep it offline for a while I attempted to fix it. Consequently, I wasn't angry, just disappointed. Yet I suppressed my feelings because I felt guilty about the situation and wanted everyone to enjoy themselves. Also, I was not surprised, considering this has been an ongoing issue for a while now. Continuing with my story, and the reason I believe I overreacted is as follows. In the server, we had just recently started. However, we did establish some basic ground rules. Essentially, players cannot begin using mines until everyone has completed their houses. You cannot destroy other players' houses or blocks, though you can place mines outside once we allow it. You must not ignore roleplay scenarios. For example, if I see you 5 feet underground, my character has to act as if they are unaware of what is happening since they don't know about your secret base. You aren't permitted to enter someone's house illegally. For instance, you can enter if they have a wooden door, but if it's an iron door with a keypad, you cannot unless you have access. There are additional rules as well, but this covers the basics. I am constructing a church with a basement, but one player discovered, illegally, I must add, they teleported to me and kept entering even after I jokingly told them to leave multiple times the basement, so I created a secret area in my secret basement. My church was not completed because I needed materials, and my double secret basement was unappealing since I merely mined a square and nothing more. Unfortunately, others placed mines in my church 3 times yesterday, and they also blocked the entrance and destroyed parts of it manually. Yet, I laughed it off and continued building because I wanted to have fun. I did remind them, in a joking manner, that we weren't supposed to use mines just yet. I laughed and repaired the damage, even though many of my chests were destroyed and a lot of the materials I had gathered for building the church were gone. After all, it was just a game meant for enjoyment. The issue began when I noticed they weren't targeting anyone else. They were solely focusing their trolling efforts on me. A few players might have had mines by their houses, but nothing near their entrances or chests. Their damage was merely cosmetic. Once again, I reminded them, in a whiny tone, that we weren't supposed to be using mines yet since we were all still in the process of building our houses. Today, my church was destroyed 7 times. The rest of the group came together and again discovered my secret basement illegally. They were all just mining to access it, causing further damage to my house and walls. They even hid creepers inside my church, resulting in additional explosions. We were supposed to hold a meeting today to establish more rules, this time in a more formal manner since we were all nearing the completion of our houses. Not me, though. My house has been destroyed so often that each time I returned with materials for building, they blew it up again. The others were in full iron armor, while I still only had a helmet I'd acquired from a zombie because I hadn't had time to gather any resources amidst studying and maintaining the server and fixing all the times they blew up my house. I understand it may seem as if I am simply upset because they destroyed my house, but that is not the core issue. The problem lies in the fact that they were targeting only me. Weren't we all supposed to enjoy this experience together? I felt isolated. I felt disheartened because I genuinely wanted to play with them, yet it seemed like a them versus me situation. I recognize this may sound whiny as I write this, but I struggle to articulate it better. It distressed me that I invested so much effort into enjoying the game with them, yet every conversation with them turned into them complaining about something related to the server, them becoming irritated over something, or me sighing after having to reconstruct everything repeatedly. Despite everything, I continued playing and tried to maintain my positivity by imagining what would be exciting to add to our lore. I was contemplating a storyline about an abandoned priest who turns into a demonic figure seeking vengeance against the town that rejected God. Consequently, I ventured quite far around 2,000 blocks and then 200 blocks up to construct a creeper farm, as I preferred not to farm creepers manually, and creating TNT is costly. My intention wasn't to blow up houses but to place mines in the forest we inhabited, as I didn't want to damage the houses. It required a lot of time for me to gather materials, reach the location, gather bamboo for rapid elevation, find a pumpkin, snow, and so forth, only for them to teleport in and ruin my entire plan. This occurred on the same day we agreed that teleporting was not allowed anymore. They disregarded this and teleported in anyway. To be honest, I was still pretty disappointed in them, so I just wanted them to leave. They attempted to roleplay with me, but I was still feeling dejected, so I refrained from using voice chat and only texted. They began blaming me once again, saying things like, "Are you angry over a game?" and similar remarks. Frustrated, I punched one to push them away. They fell, and then they started attacking me. They killed me multiple times and prevented me from retrieving my items. We also have a rule against stealing unless it's from open chests. We utilize a lapid mod so I wouldn't lose my items. My inventory was full, so whenever I attempted to retrieve my belongings, something would inevitably drop. There's a mod that duplicates cosmetics for an unknown reason, which I still haven't fixed. This meant they ended up with my backpacks and began taking my items. They then proceeded to destroy the area where I was building. I ultimately expressed, "I cannot continue playing this game. I log in and my house explodes. You tell me I can't use mines, yet you somehow can. You say I can't destroy player blocks, but you can. You say teleporting isn't allowed, yet you do it. You demand we maintain roleplay, yet you do not. You tell me I can't enter your house if it's illegal, but you do without hesitation. I traveled so far away for a moment of peace, yet you all ignored the hint and came anyway, causing destruction and laughing about it. Why am I the only one being targeted?" I cannot recall the exact wording, but it was something along those lines. I waited for about 25 seconds without a response before logging off. I don't know. I feel as though I overreacted and I feel terrible as though I want to cry. I actually did cry. Did I overreact? What should I do? Story 2. After a whirlwind romance, I uncovered my partner's hidden drug use and flirty texts, shattering my trust. Can I ever believe him again? Warning. Long things progressed rapidly, and we expressed our love for each other after only a few weeks of acquaintance. At that point, I genuinely felt that I loved him profoundly, more than I had loved anyone else before. He felt like my best friend. I was experiencing a challenging living situation, and my other roommate and I had to move out unexpectedly for our safety about a month ago. Prior to this, my boyfriend would often joke about how eager he was for me to move in with him and spend his life together. I was naturally hesitant, concerned that it would jeopardize our relationship since things were moving so quickly. However, I loved him, and he loved me. I already felt secure and at home with him. We also connected over our past struggles with addiction. On the night we first met, he asked if I wanted to partake in drugs. I have been sober for 3 years now, so I declined. This was a significant red flag for me, but when I mentioned my discomfort, he apologized, promising he would not do it again or around me. We occasionally discuss it, and he claims he cannot even consider going back to that lifestyle. He often expresses gratitude, as if I saved him. The month I've spent living here has been tumultuous, to say the least. He has become almost unrecognizable to me. I've been attempting to extend him grace, understanding that we are both still learning about each other, and it might have been more difficult for him than for me. Our communication began to deteriorate, and I felt as though I could not speak to him without being judged. He attended college, while I did not, although I have a professional job and earn enough to support myself. I have always sensed that he perceives me as lacking intellect. He refers to me as dumb jokingly and insinuates that I am uncultured seriously, which has prevented me from elaborating on my thoughts and opinions. Interestingly, he felt similarly about me. He would often go out late at night, drinking with his friends and returning home at 2 a.m., slurring his words after driving himself. I don't wish to portray him as a bad person. This behavior was not common and only started occurring in the weeks leading up to the present. I knew that he enjoyed going out to bars, which I did not, and I was prepared to accept that aspect of his life, trust him, and allow him to spend time with his friends. However, after his nights out, I found myself judging him. My primary concern was his safety. I was anxious that he might harm himself or accidentally hurt someone else while driving. I viewed his actions as indicative of immature and selfish behavior, especially for someone who is 33 years old. This behavior made me feel distant from him, especially when he would fall asleep on the floor or couch, leaving me alone in bed. He sometimes slept on the couch at least once a week due to our conflicting schedules, as he did not want to wake me. Although I wanted him to rest, I tried to set my feelings aside for his sake. I personally have not engaged in serious dating for 5 years, as I spent that time working on myself following a series of tumultuous relationships and life challenges, which included significant trust issues, and I was pleased with my progress. At the time, I genuinely believed I had found the one. He used to be incredibly sweet, caring, and kind, often showering me with thoughtful gifts that I had never experienced in any prior relationships. However, my trust issues lingered and compounded within this relationship. He gradually began to make hurtful jokes that took a toll on my previously high self-esteem. It felt as though he secretly harbored disdain for me. He would also point out which of his friends he found attractive, alongside celebrities or people we both knew. He followed numerous women who bore no resemblance to me simply because he deemed them attractive. I tried not to let this bother me, recognizing that attraction is natural, but it ultimately affected me, causing my trust in him to wane. I tried discussing how his jokes affected me and how the people he was engaging with made me feel. He eventually unfollowed most of those individuals, but he did not significantly alter his joking behavior, despite his promise to do so. Fast forward to last week. He had a birthday this past Wednesday and planned a week-long trip to Japan and then Vietnam with some of his friends. In the days leading up to it, I was excited for him, showering him with gifts and taking him out for a meal at an upscale restaurant. While I was saddened that I couldn't spend his birthday with him, I wanted him to enjoy himself. He left on Monday, and on Saturday, he spent the day drinking with his friend Tim. When I returned home from work that evening, he went out for a few drinks with his friends to celebrate his birthday. I had been tattooing all day and was exhausted, so I chose not to go, allowing him to have fun with his friends. I trusted him at this point, even when he mentioned he would be gone for just an hour, but he came home at 2 a.m., slurring his words once more. I felt upset, distant, and wished he had called me for a ride, as I had offered, instead of deciding to drive home. The next morning, he appeared quite depressed, repeatedly expressing that he felt as though I did not like him and judged him. I reassured him of my love for him and my desire for his safety. He even mentioned wanting to return home and marry me, stating he wanted to build a real life together once he returned. I didn't take it seriously, but it was nice to hear. I didn't want to let it affect our final day together, so I put on a cheerful demeanor, took him out for a meal, and we ended up having a wonderful day despite everything. Throughout the day, he continued to make progressively mean jokes, but I recognized them as just humor and understood that he is inherently a very playful person, an aspect I need to learn to navigate without taking things personally. Nevertheless, his remarks still stung. During his trip, he has been somewhat distant, calling only once a day, and only if I text him first, which has made me feel like an annoyance for wanting to connect. Last night, I had an unsettling feeling and did something I now regret. He has an old phone still linked to his iCloud, and without exercising good judgment, I turned it on and looked through it. I discovered that on the night he went out, a woman he had matched with on a dating app before our relationship had seen him at the bar and reached out to him at 2 a.m. on his way home. She had claimed she didn't want to approach him since she knew he had a girlfriend. He then asked her to send a selfie because he thought it would be cute. She sent a picture of her behind, to which he reacted positively and invited her to meet up, requesting her address. I later found out that she did send it. He only deleted that one message, but based on the texts, it seemed he did not go to meet her and simply returned home to me. I was devastated and felt completely repulsed. I continued to snoop, unable to stop, and discovered that he had been texting a girl he had previously been involved with earlier that day, expressing how special she was to him and how much he missed talking to someone like her. He asked her to call and requested that they keep it between themselves. He alleged that he needed someone to confide in regarding the struggles we had been facing. I also found that he had not quit using cocaine and had likely been doing it 4 or 5 times without my knowledge. I confronted him angrily, a complete mess, saying I was leaving him. He started apologizing, claiming he was a horrible person, promising to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and therapy, and do whatever it took to keep me. He said he was disgusted by his actions, expressing how much he loved me and was willing to do anything to make things right. He admitted to having problems with his self-esteem, impulse control, and substance use. He vowed never to drink again and stated he could not imagine losing me, explaining that he realized how serious the situation had become when she sent the address. He was simply tempted and drunk after drinking and using cocaine throughout the day. I am uncertain how I can trust him again after he has lied to me multiple times. I understand that quitting drugs is exceptionally challenging, particularly without a support system when all his friends use. Nevertheless, I cannot comprehend the lying. I also recognize that he was extraordinarily intoxicated, feeling lonely and scared in our relationship, and felt unable to talk to me, and that he did not physically cheat on me. Yet my trust remains shattered. I feel foolish and embarrassed. I still love him, though, and a part of me wants to navigate this situation and assist him in achieving sobriety if he genuinely commits to therapy and Alcoholics Anonymous, shows signs of improvement, and refrains from drinking again. He appears genuinely remorseful and even called his mother to discuss what had happened, admitting that he needs help. However, a part of me will never forget this occurrence, and I am unsure if I can be intimate with him for a long while. I feel repulsed both with myself and him. I doubt my ability to trust him. I do not know what to do. Would you choose to stay and attempt to mend things, knowing what you know, or would that reflect a lack of self-respect on my part, leading you to leave? Story 3. Conflict makes my husband, 39F, withdraw, but he's the one who generates it. It's killing me. I created a separate account because my family follows my main account, and no one knows about the challenges I am facing in my marriage. This is lengthy, and I apologize. I just need to express my feelings. I am truly drained and in search of guidance. Leaving right now is not an option for me. I am financially constrained and will be for another 3 years. My husband works away from home for 3 weeks at a time, which means we often have long periods apart. I want to remain married, but at this moment, I cannot envision spending the rest of my life in this situation. I am a 39-year-old woman, and my husband is a 47-year-old man. Throughout our relationship, he has dealt with mental challenges. We will celebrate 9 years of marriage this summer. He experienced neglect during his childhood, which impeded his ability to genuinely care for others. While he can exhibit care, it lacks depth. His immediate reaction to friends and family when conflicts arise is to disappear. He finds it hard to cope with difficult emotions. He has harbored significant anger towards his mother, and when she was nearing the end of her life, he severed all contact and did not visit her before she passed away. He is now treating his uncle the same way, despite the uncle reaching out and likely not having much time left. The truth is, I was unaware of this aspect of him when we got married. He managed to conceal it very effectively for a long time. There have been a few critical breaking points in our marriage. The first occurred a few days before our wedding when I discovered pornography on his laptop. I do not want to delve too deeply into my background, but due to a previous relationship, I had established a firm boundary. I would not enter into a relationship with someone who used pornography. I was not seeking someone to quit for my sake. I merely wished to find someone who refrained from using it. I do not judge anyone who does, but it is just not for me. He appeared to be my ideal partner as he professed to have no interest in it whatsoever. Unfortunately, that turned out to be a falsehood, one that could have ended our relationship early on. Since we were just days away from the wedding, we went through with it, but my trust was severely damaged. His reaction was to cry and withdraw from me, insisting he was foolish and had a problem, and that he did not want to ruin our relationship because I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. So I gradually picked up the pieces on my own and moved forward. The second incident happened when I was just days away from giving birth to our son. I found multiple tabs open on his phone for a live cam site called Chatterbait, which I had borrowed from him. For those unfamiliar, it is a platform where users can interact with sex workers. This felt like a tremendous betrayal, especially since I had invested so much effort into preserving our sexual relationship during my difficult pregnancy. Despite my struggles, he still sought gratification outside of our marriage. He claimed he only watched and did not engage. His response when I discovered this betrayal was to remain in bed, crying and depressed for several days while I managed work and prepared for the birth of our son, all while feeling the weight of the betrayal during a vulnerable time in my life. Shortly after our son's birth, I found a credit card statement revealing charges that proved he had done much more than simply watch. He cheated on me by appearing on camera and paid for private sessions with women for his satisfaction. He has never come clean about the full extent of his actions. He has only admitted to what I have discovered. After I confronted him about the credit card charges, he withdrew from communication for several days, oversleeping, crying, and sinking into a deep depression. When I finally managed to engage him in a conversation about it, he focused entirely on himself, expressing how messed up he felt and how he did not understand why he acted that way. The third instance occurred after a conflict in which he had been emotionally unstable and uttered hurtful remarks. To cope, he resorted to downloading Snapchat to connect with women and made plans to meet them. He assures me he has never actually gone through with any meetings, but claims that communicating with them and arranging to have sex fulfills a certain need he has. He even made detailed plans regarding where he would finish with these women. To be frank, it revolts me. It continues to disgust me. My primary issue is that he genuinely wishes to improve and salvage our marriage, and so do I. We have 2 children, a home, and futures we envision together, but he is not taking meaningful steps to make that happen. He goes through cycles of working on himself, but fails to stick to anything long enough to affect real change. He has seen multiple therapists over time, but has never addressed the core issue. He seems to lack the capacity to empathize or care deeply for others. He engages in self-destructive behavior without acknowledging the damage it causes those around him. He has sought sympathy and diagnoses that excuse his actions and spent a lot of time revisiting his childhood, but none of that has translated into him demonstrating a different presence for me. The therapy has, in many ways, worsened the problem, a truth he acknowledges. Despite everything, it seems he remains incapable of recognizing that the things he has done in the past continue to cause me pain daily, and that I now have numerous triggers associated with him because the trust has been broken, and he has not made any real efforts to repair it. It is as if he awakens each morning oblivious to his past actions and becomes defensive when I attempt to hold him accountable. When he finally does acknowledge the mistakes he has made, he spirals into another depression, withdrawing from me and wallowing in self-loathing. I have never felt more invisible in my life. He engages in actions that create conflict harming me, yet when he becomes aware of it, he redirects the focus to his feelings and how terrible he feels. I cannot recall a time when he looked me in the eye and validated my feelings or apologized sincerely. Today, I find myself in a situation where I have gone nearly 5 days without hearing from him after discovering a pair of women's underwear that do not belong to me in my drawer. There are several innocent explanations for how they ended up there, but I still texted my husband to ask for an explanation. He adamantly denied they were his, and while I was inclined to believe him, he has essentially ghosted me since. Last night, I told him that disappearing after I found someone else's underwear in my drawer appears very suspicious and is making me feel insecure. His response was, "I do not want to deal with the conflict. I cannot explain the underwear. I have nothing. What I can assure you is that it is not from me, and I am not with anyone else. I was sleeping and on call. Yes, I understand that my way of handling this is messed up. I apologize. I know I am a mess. I do not want to read your messages right now. My anxiety is through the roof. I am struggling to cope. How on earth do I endure 3 more years of this? Currently, my only option seems to be to separate and find a way to coexist amicably while he is home until I can buy him out of the house. The challenge lies in his ability to act as if nothing has occurred once he emerges from his fight or flight response. He is not a bad person. He simply has numerous issues. I love him deeply and have always hoped to see him improve and prove to himself that he can overcome his past and break the cycle of generational trauma. Yet, I cannot keep sacrificing my well-being. Any advice or insight would be appreciated. I am at a loss regarding my next steps. In summary, my husband withdraws and becomes self-focused during the conflicts his own actions create, leaving me to navigate my feelings and progress independently. He expresses a desire for improvement and a commitment to working on our marriage, but I am not witnessing that translated into action. I feel financially trapped and must stay with him for at least 3 more years. I am unsure how to make him comprehend the urgency of taking the expiration date on our marriage seriously enough to inspire genuine change. I also worry about how to endure living like this for 3 more years without completely withdrawing from the relationship. Please do not simply tell me to get a divorce. I understand that is likely in my future. I want to hear from anyone who has experienced something similar, how you coped, and what I can do to either help him find the capacity to change or to empower myself to move on while safeguarding my mental health during our time together. Story 4. I lost my first love after we fought to be together. I cared for her deeply, but in the end, we both broke each other. I always understood that I would not do everything perfectly, but how did it end up like this? I am an adult now. I was just a boy when I first got involved with her. Now I sit in my room, tears long dried, feeling utterly empty. She was both my best friend and my girlfriend. With her, I lost the person I confided in about my trauma, the person I entrusted with my deepest thoughts. I would typically text her about this, but I feel that every word I utter may be excessive. She is attempting to move on, just as she did 2 times before. She has experienced significant pain in her past, and her instincts are urging her to protect herself, to shut down, and to dismantle everything we built together. I understand this about her. I have loved her through those phases and reassured her that it is okay to feel this way. She has never had the opportunity to express her emotions at home with her parents without them blaming her for every feeling she experiences. It has only been a 1.5 years, but the things we have done for one another are beyond what even married couples might do for each other. This was a forbidden love. Her parents should have never learned about us. She was facing abuse at home, and so we both decided to escape. I was threatened by her family, who warned me that they would harm me. I stood by her side through it all. However, the damage had already been done. She loved those people, and we both knew that they inflicted pain on her because they wanted their daughter back. I ultimately returned her to the hands of those who would only value her for her achievements, not for the person she truly is. Her mother was aware of our relationship and appreciated that her daughter had someone like me in her life. Her father was unaware. This was a forbidden love, and I often tried to create an environment in which she felt safe enough to express her thoughts. I always knew she was not a big talker, but that did not bother me. She was my sweet little girl whenever she felt secure with me, revealing her inner broken child in safe spaces. Yet the issue lay with the phone. The misunderstandings, words misconstrued, the texting that led us into dead ends, followed by discussions about how we would improve, how this would be our fresh start. We broke up before Valentine's Day because she struggled to express herself, feeling that she did not find the answers she sought from my words. I explored everything about who I am and who she is, seeking ways to be a better listener, but it was insufficient. Days passed without contact. Her signals were subtle, but I always recognized them, and I could see that she missed me. We conversed, and she shared more about herself and our relationship than she had ever disclosed before. This occurred 2 weeks ago, and I had never felt as good about myself or about her before. It seemed like the golden opportunity, the one that would succeed. We recognized our need for each other in a healthy manner. We experimented with new activities, communicated differently, and I could sense her joy in my presence. She felt secure enough to fall asleep to the sound of my voice, to rest in my arms, to cry on my shoulder, and to express her inner child's pain openly. This relationship represented more than just a romantic bond. It was a friendship and a commitment to improve, to treat her with the utmost care. I almost experienced a parental sense of responsibility, providing her with a safe environment to open up. We laughed, kissed, and exchanged "I love you" just 2 days ago, words she had not easily voiced when we first got together, only saying them when she felt comfortable. But once again, everything went awry on the phone. I had significant issues stemming from when I ran away with her, returning her to the doorstep of those I knew would hurt her again. She attempted to forget that this incident happened and was frustrated with me for continuously reminding her. That was when I confided in her about my difficult childhood, having been abused by my father. I managed to escape that situation unharmed. The thought of her being in constant danger shattered my mental health more than anything my father had ever done to me. This was not intended to make her feel guilty, but I must admit that I should not have said such things. It felt as if my trauma was being ignored. I would never put myself in this position for anyone again. I sacrificed everything I owned to make things work, to feed and house her estate away. I deceived my friends and family, losing their trust and severing relationships with many of them entirely. I wanted to convey that I was hurting too. We reconciled a week ago, with a written commitment from me to get my life together, and it genuinely felt better. Mentally, I was improving, exploring new experiences, and reconnecting with others. I am doing these things for myself, which is why I didn't detail every minor improvement, but she failed to notice any of it. She suggested I seek therapy. Her friends insisted she should only communicate with me if I assured her of that. I found myself in a challenging situation, unable to accept that offer immediately, so I told her I was doing well and questioned why she couldn't see it. She didn't see it. I did not want to appear stubborn, so I admitted I was open to trying therapy, acknowledging that I sometimes fail to recognize my own problems. That conversation occurred yesterday, and she simply gave up. There was nothing left for her to say to me. We wished each other a final good morning when I asked if we could call again. She declined, and I was fine with that. Sometimes she needed space, and I granted it to her. When I returned 2 hours later, I used that time to talk to my friends about how I could obtain therapy as soon as possible because I did not want to cause further harm. I discovered she was gone. Profile blocked, vanished, erased. Everything I did was for nothing. Everything she did was for nothing. This was a matter we could have discussed. I wish we could have. But it is too late now. Normally, I would have called her and expressed what we risked losing if we parted ways, that I preferred to work things out with her rather than seek another love. I wanted her to be my love. Yet this time, I refrained. Her friends were strongly supporting her decision to cut me off, but I only wanted her perspective on what we should do. I noticed the sudden shift in our communication yesterday, transitioning from discussing solutions to her blocking me. I knew that was not her own decision. I understand her deeply, but I do not wish to cause her further pain. I have cried over her many times, but now I feel nothing but emptiness left behind without the friends I once had, the interests I used to pursue, or the trust and connection I once shared with my family. I concealed our relationship to protect her. So many of the people I have lost do not even understand why I am feeling this way lately. I do not want to lose her, but I fear this is the end. She told me she was grateful to have me in her life because her type of man would have harmed her. She sought comfort in the behaviors of her family, and she looked for the same in relationships. I helped her heal from several issues and tried to demonstrate that love could be different. I hope she finds happiness. I have always wanted her to be happy, with or without me. I hope she escapes her abusive family. I regret that I could not witness her graduation or see her achieve anything in life. She rarely receives compliments about her accomplishments. I have always expressed my pride in her, no matter what. I cherished having her in my life. Even though her love was conveyed differently, I learned to embrace that aspect of her as well, the sensitive, easily hurt, sometimes affectionate, sometimes not broken, helpless side that makes her who she is. I wanted to heal alongside her, but I feel that we merely broke each other. I have moved past any form of self-harm or negative intentions by now. Still, I have previously made mistakes in that regard. I explained to her that being stuck in a mental chokehold, forced to move on, left me feeling trapped in my own mind, neglecting my well-being. I harmed myself not intentionally, but by neglecting to care for myself at work. I expressed this to her. I cannot explain why I did. I wish to convey my hurt, not make her feel guilty for what I experienced. As I type this, I am reaching out for therapy. I have caused pain to someone else, and I have hurt myself. Mentally, I feel like an empty shell of my former self. This entire situation is painful. I long to love my little girl again, but I left her from my embrace not even a few days ago with no chance of ever feeling her head on my chest again. I feel guilty for loving her because I know she is struggling with me, yet also when she is without me. How can I even move on with my life? Story 5. My M35 girlfriend, F40, said she needs time because I got high. Is it over and how much have I messed up? I have been in a committed relationship for 3 years with my girlfriend, who is 40 years old and has 2 children from a prior marriage. I am 35 years old and have a stable job with a good income, and I regularly engage in exercise. However, I do struggle with a strong inclination towards leafy greens, which I am actively trying to address, and I also have mental health concerns that I still need to have officially diagnosed. Initially, I was her lover while she was still married. I was aware that her marriage was toxic, which made it easier for me to pursue her without feeling guilty. Once her divorce was finalized, we began dating seriously, but we kept the relationship discreet for the first 2 years to avoid confusing her children. I intended to be considerate because I come from a broken family as well. During this period, I took her on vacations, paid for numerous things, and purchased nice gifts for her and her children. When we started our relationship, I was abstinent and had been successful in controlling my urges for a long time, but the addiction re-emerged with sporadic binges. Although I had setbacks a few times, I consistently bounced back by focusing on work or fitness objectives. She initially did not mind my smoking during the low-key stage of our relationship, but after a couple of recent binges, she presented me with an ultimatum. I recognized that this was exhausting for her, but I assured her that I was making progress. The housing situation became important when she acquired a house as part of her divorce settlement. We did not move in together immediately because the house required renovations. I contributed financially to these renovations to help her manage expenses, occasionally assisting with household chores and other small tasks. However, since I needed a home office, I continued renting my apartment and kept my work life separate. Several areas of the house, the bedroom and the second bathroom, were not completed, so when I stayed over, we slept on the couch. She wanted everything finished as soon as possible, and although I helped as much as I could, I did not take on the responsibility of maintaining a house in which I did not yet reside. I reassured her that I was committed for the long term, but I needed to focus on my own career and living situation as well. I explained that renovating a house takes time and significant resources, so she needed to be realistic and understand that if we planned to move in together in the future, it would be a challenging period. Despite my reassurances, I sensed her growing dissatisfaction with our relationship, which I believe was tied to the unfinished state of the house. Over the past couple of months, I attempted to propose ways for us to spend more time together in the house, such as moving my home office into a vacant corner, but she rejected that idea. She explained that when her ex-husband had a home office, she and the kids were never allowed to interrupt him, which I felt was an unfair comparison since I cherished her presence. I sensed her becoming distant, and last weekend, I had a binge after a month-long break. I spent time with a friend binge-watching Netflix and taking some time for myself while she was at a friend's party. I still had some marijuana left on Monday, so after work, I got high and visited her in the evening, even though I knew she disliked it. Nonetheless, I preferred to spend time with her doing nothing or having a movie night to enjoy her company. I could feel her coldness, and after she saw me high, she seemed visibly upset. We did not kiss goodnight, and the following morning, she spoke to me very little. When I asked if I should come by the next day or pick up my belongings, she mentioned that she needed time to think. Last month, she was grieving the loss of her stepfather, which I felt ill-equipped to handle since I have not experienced the loss of someone so close to me. The best approach I could think of was to play a game to distract her. I am still quite nerdy. I have experienced severe seasonal depression throughout most of the fall and winter, during which I felt myself spiraling. I was still recovering from an injury that prevented me from exercising, leaving me unable to drive. This contributed to my moody and overbearing behavior, as I often overshared my feelings with her. I believe she now views me as less of a man because I have not been able to meet her needs, and I failed to manage my addiction and emotions effectively. She even expressed that it felt like she was taking care of another child and accused me of not truly wanting to live with her, suggesting that I was only interested in her for sex. I reassured her that if all I wanted was sex, I would not have entered a long-term relationship with her, and that I have always recognized the need for her children to come first. Nevertheless, I loved her and her kids, accepting them as part of the package. While I acknowledge that my addiction and mental health struggles are my responsibility, I feel I have been more than just a typical boyfriend to her, especially concerning the children. I have supported her independence and contributed financially to the renovations. I have been trusting and respectful of her need for time alone, never questioning her when she had occasional nights out with friends, understanding how rare free time is for a mother of two. On Sunday, I am scheduled to meet with her to discuss our relationship. I have a strong feeling that a breakup is looming, and my heart aches as I come to terms with this possibility. I also feel a sense of betrayal if she has been harboring these feelings for some time. Why did she not address them sooner instead of leading me along, and then using my being high on the last occasion as the breaking point for our relationship? I realize that I crossed a previously established boundary, so I accept that responsibility. However, it seems unjust to potentially throw away a 3-year relationship because of this issue, especially considering all I have done for her. I felt that our relationship was solid when things were going well. We were in a friends with benefits arrangement, and I was happily indulging her, but when the situation became serious and difficult, I became vulnerable and weak. Even when I stood firm on certain decisions in our relationship, it appeared she began to distance herself. I believe we both need to humble ourselves if we are to have any chance at salvaging our relationship. However, I also feel that unless I become like Bob the Builder, finish the renovations for her, and take on household chores, I will not gain her appreciation or respect. I think I just needed to express my thoughts, but I would welcome any insights you might have regarding our situation. I will provide an update next week.